Welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. On this podcast, we're going to continue building the personal income tax calculator. And let's just review very quickly what we've done so far. We have the inputs over here in blue. Those are your personal inputs and also the inputs specific to the tax code. And then over here we have in green, we have our outputs. And we've talked about all these outputs before. We have the taxable income right here. We've talked about that formula. We have the initial taxes owed. We have not talked about this. We will do so in this video. We have the tax credits, which get subtracted away and give us our final answer, final taxes owed. Now, this stuff's going to get confusing. There's going to be a lot going on here, and you just gotta kind of stick with me on this. So first of all, remember there's a three-step process to calculating your final taxes owed. Step number one is to calculate your taxable income. Okay, we've already written the formula to do that. Step number two is to calculate your taxes owed. We have not done that yet. I will show you how to do it on this video. And then step number three is to calculate any credits that get subtracted away. You subtract away those credits and you get to your final answer. Now, let's go back to talking about the taxes owed. How are we going to calculate this? Well, first of all, the number that I'm feeding into here, I'm just setting that equal to cell D39. So D39, that's where we're actually going to do the work. So we got to scroll down here to these brackets that we've created before, and here is D39. So what is D39? D39 is just adding up the taxes that I owe in each one of the brackets. So in the 5% tax bracket, we owed $3,000. In the 10% tax bracket, we owed $300. In the 15% tax bracket, we owed nothing. Why? Well, we owed nothing because my taxable income is only $63,000. Okay, so my income wasn't high enough to push me into the 15% tax bracket. And that's true for all the rest of the tax brackets. I owe zero, I owe zero, I owe zero. Add all those tax brackets together, and you get your final number right here, $3,300. And then that is what gets put in here as your taxes owed. So we need to talk on this video, we need to talk about how to calculate your taxes owed for each one of the brackets. So I'm going to do one bracket as an example. I'm going to do this bracket right here, the 10% tax bracket. So the 10% tax bracket, we're going to be paying $300 in taxes. How do I get that number? Okay, so here's how we get this number, this $300. Here's how I figure out how much taxes I pay in that bracket. Here's how I'm going to figure that out. So the first thing is we're going to write an if statement. The first part of my if statement says this: if my taxable income, that's E4, let's just go up and see that. That's up here, that's E4, that's this right here. If my taxable income, which is right here, E4, if that taxable income is less than cell B33, that's the bottom of the bracket, then, comma, I pay zero taxes in that bracket, okay? And that just makes sense. If my taxable income were less than $60,000, then I wouldn't pay any income taxes in that bracket because my income wouldn't be high enough to get into the bracket. So if my taxable income, E4, is less than the bottom of the bracket, which is B33, then my taxes owed are zero, okay? Then my taxes owed would be zero, and then just zero would go into this cell, okay? Then we have to say, but what if, need another if, what if my income is above the top of the bracket? If my income, my taxable income, that's E44, that's my taxable income up here. In our example, it's $63,000. It's not greater than the top of the bracket. But if it were, if my income were higher than $120,000, if my taxable income, that's right here, were greater than the top of the bracket, which is C33, if that's true, then I have to pay taxes on all the money in this bracket. Okay? Then I would owe taxes in all the money that's in this bracket. All right? So I would owe, if my income were, taxable income were above $120,000, I would owe taxes on this whole $60,000 that's in this bracket. $120,000 minus $60,000. And that's what I have up here. C33 minus B33. That's the top of the bracket minus the bottom of the bracket, multiplied by A33, which is the percent tax. So I'm taking top of the bracket minus the bottom of the bracket times 10%. That's if my income is above the top of the bracket. If it's not above the top of the bracket, if it's somewhere in between, which is our situation, our taxable income is $63,000. Okay? So if that's the case, then you're going to take the taxable income, $63,000, E4, minus the bottom of the bracket, which is $60,000. There'd be $3,000 of income in there. Taxable income, E4, minus the bottom of the bracket, B33, and then you take that amount of income in there and multiply it by the tax bracket. Multiply it by A33. Okay? So there's three things that can happen here. The first thing that can happen is if you're below the bottom of the bracket, no taxes owed in that bracket. 0. If you're above the top of the bracket, then you owe taxes on all the money in the bracket. So then you got to do top of the bracket minus the bottom of the bracket, multiplied by the tax rate. Otherwise, you take your taxable income minus the bottom of the bracket and multiply it by the tax rate. Okay? So that's where these numbers are coming from. That's how I'm calculating these numbers. Now, I just did that for this one. All right? You want to take that same concept. You take this formula and just put it right in there into D to cell D33. Put that formula right in there, and now you got to build the rest of these formulas in the same way. You're going to follow the same process to build the rest of these formulas. All right? And they're going to go in the rest of these cells. Each one of these cells under taxes owed is going to have these formulas built into them. Okay? Now, you can do them each one by one by one by one. Okay? You can do them one by one. But if you get good at this and you kind of play with it, you're going to find that if you do this right, you can copy and then just paste into the other cells. All right? But that takes a little bit more sophistication. There's some things you have to do to make that work. And so at this point, I've showed you how to do one of them. You want to play with this and see if you can try to build the rest of these. All right, so that gives us then the calculation of the taxes owed, and that's what's going to then feed up here. So let's just watch one time if we change my number. What if I made my family income $200,000? If I made my family income $200,000, okay, I hit enter. That's my new input. So it's going to calculate my taxable income. It's going to take my family income minus standard deduction minus retirement savings, and that's going to create a taxable income over here. And then it's going to take that taxable income and it's going to bring it down here. And it's going to say, oh, that taxable income, what was it again? $163,000. So now that is all this income in here between the top and the bottom of this bracket is going to get taxed at 5%. That's going to be $3,000 of taxes. That $163,000 taxable income, it's going to go through the 10% tax bracket. It's going to go through the 15% tax bracket. Oh, no, it's not. It's going to stop in the middle of the 15% tax bracket. In between here is $163,000. Okay? The rest of these brackets are going to go to 0. 0, 0, 0, 0. Then it adds up all the taxes that I owe, gets my final number, and then it puts that final number right up here, subtracts the tax credit, and gives me my final taxes owed. Okay, so that's the point that we need to get to. And that's kind of complicated. So you're going to need to play with this a little bit. Going off of my example here at the 10% tax bracket, got to build the rest of these formulas, and then we need to test it and make sure that you're doing it correctly and that it works. Okay, so this has been Mr. Hagan on another podcast. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you on the next podcast.